Passion and profit reveal your who, right? So part one, we talked about identify your why. I feel like they're linked, right? In order for us to really determine and really take our passion and make it profitable, we really got to understand why we're doing it, because it's going to take a lot of time. Why we're doing it, what's our motivation behind it, and then I feel like those aspects will reveal who you should be working with. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm your host, of course, Brandon Gaston. Brand U is my creative agency, and we're just going to go through it. If you guys have questions, I mentioned before, save them for the end, and then I will answer everything. I'll have plenty of time before when I get through, so you guys will have questions to have time to go over your questions. So what you'll learn today, what you can expect to hear, is how do your goals, purpose, and value proposition direct your who, right? So again, we talked about that. Those aspects, some things we covered in the previous webinar, but how do those direct your who? Characteristics of who are they? What are the characteristics of the person you want to work with? And when the first one I did, branding your new normal, that was actually, this is one of the biggest questions, is how do you correctly identify and target your customer? So we're really going to get into that. Like I said, at the end when I have Q&A, get as specific as possible. Breaking down the perfect transaction. A lot of you guys might have heard of what an avatar is. I'm actually going to break that down in specifics, as well as what are the components of an avatar and how do you understand who that is and how does that create the foundation for what you want to be doing going forward. Customer segmentation per offering. We'll go through that. For each of the offerings we have, there's typically more than one customer. You guys probably think there's hundreds of customers. We want to try to narrow that down. And so we're really going to talk about who the customers are per offering, your ideal customers. The AHA method, something I use and something I've recognized dealing with my one-on-one coaching clients. There's a lot of ahas in it, and it's really when you combine these four characteristics. So I'm going to go into details on that, and then I saved a surprise at the end. So if you guys stick around, before we go to the Q&A at the end, I have a surprise, and it's kind of like a culmination of everything. I won't give too much away right now, but it brings it all together. So recap, identify your why, foundation of who, right? And again, like I just mentioned, your why is your purpose, why you're doing it, the motivations behind it. I went into all these different details, but this is really the recap of what that presentation was in a nutshell. And it's the foundation of who, because again, your purpose helps identify who and why you want, who and why you want to serve, right? So when I say purpose, I use it interchangeably with passion, legacy, right? Why you're doing what you're doing. I feel like you need to have a motivation that's intrinsic, as well as, intrinsic motivations as well. But what is really the passion behind what you're doing? And once you've identified that, that really kind of determines, who you want to serve, how you want to serve them. I use real estate very often, frequently. And it's like, if you are a real estate agent and your focus is really working on, first-time home buyers, right? Because you really have a passion about serving those individuals and really, creating wealth within their family. Like, your purpose will kind of direct who you want to work with. But your goals will tell you how much you need to sell, right? So again, a lot of times once we've actually determined who do we want to sell to, your goals, how much money you want to make, is going to determine how much you need to sell. And sometimes that might pull at each other, because at that connection point, you're either going to determine, hey, maybe, I really love just the idea of selling homes. I don't care as much about first-time home buyers. I really just love selling to anyone. Or you might realize, like, no, first-time home buyers really is what I'm passionate about. And because of that, I now need to sell a hell of a lot more homes. So what does that look like from a marketing perspective? What does that look like from a team perspective, right? How many homes do you actually need to sell on an annual, monthly, whatever basis? And so your goals really determine your scale of your operation. And then the value prop tells you how you need to sell it. So again, I talked about last time, I'm not going to go into the weeds of it, but really your value prop is what you can do better than anything else in the world, right? Like, what is that thing that you're better than anyone else at? And that is your value proposition. And then, so within that, within your personality traits, within your skill sets, how do you communicate that to your audience? So purpose, it will tell you the who. Goals will tell you the how many or how to scale. And the value prop will tell you how you're going to sell it. And those are really the foundations of who you want to work with as your target customer. And we're really talking about here, we're talking about your ideal customers, not just anybody, but who are the prospects you want to work with, that you're going to get paid in the ways you want to get paid, that you enjoy doing that type of work. So characteristics of who are they and what do they like? We're first going to talk about the demographics. That tells you who the customer is. We're going to break down what are psychographics. People that don't know, tells you what they like and what their values are. And then we're going to actually go into what is an avatar story and how do we start from that foundation when we're actually creating our marketing campaigns, our sales strategies, etc. So demographics, psychographics, demographics. I said it upside down. Demographics is the science of marketplace reality, right? So for those that haven't heard of it, I'm sure a lot of you guys have. That's really telling you the who, right? The age, location, gender, income, education, occupation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Any stats of that particular customer, that really what the demographics are. The psychographics, which honestly, if you were to ask me which of the two are more important, is the science of perceived marketplace reality, right? So this is not just who they are, but how they see things, how they see the market, and how they make buying decisions, which is what we're in it for. That really breaks down the interests, the hobbies, the values, and the motives of your target demographic. So again, this is very general, but this is like the starting point of where you really want to kind of identify who you want to work with. Demographics, again, break it down. Who they are, just the general stats of it. And that will kind of, again, figure out like, if I want to talk to a first-time home buyer, they're going to be between 25 and 35, right? Or, I generally, and these are averages, but you want to try to be as specific as possible and as detailed as possible, because that's going to direct your marketing campaigns later and everything else you do. Then the psychographics really is, again, what they like, what they value, so on and so on. So, again, going through that, remember, your ideal customer is out there waiting for you. Remember, you can't be everything to everybody you don't want to be. By playing to the middle, you inevitably reduce your value. So again, I mentioned earlier, demographics, psychographics, depending on your offering, you may notice that certain attributes matter more than others and some not at all, but try to fill in as much as possible. Let me cheat ahead. So when we're talking about psychographics, right, we're breaking down we're trying to understand the why that they're buying. And that's really what it's about, right? It's really understanding, I'm going to go into more detail about that later on, but it's like, okay, so this is the person, this is their general statistics, this is who they are, they went to college, depending on your product offering, I work primarily with male or female or other, whatever it is that you do. This is the income, because this particular income is going to be able to afford my product or offering. But then the why, I always joke around all the time, the psychology of fashion in certain areas is less than others. So even someone that has the same income, what they're willing to spend on fashion in the Northwest might be less than you would see like in LA or New York, right? Because in those areas, those marketplaces, image is so much more important. So it's not just understanding who they are from a statistic perspective. It's also understanding why they make those buying decisions, what they value. And that's really the key, is what do they value? Because I'm going to go into more of this on detail later, but what is their motivation? What is the push of why they're actually going to end up making that purchase? So from there, again, understanding this is really the foundational aspect of kind of targeting your who, right? Who you want to work with. But the next part is the crux of it. That's really what you want to get to. This is what I have all my clients do, and it's really creating an avatar story. And I coined it like the perfect transaction. And you notice I left it by itself. You need to write out in detail all the characteristics of the perfect transaction. I work with clients all the time. I'm coaching clients, whether they're influencers, whether they're mortgage brokers, whether they're entrepreneurs, whatever. And writing it out is one of the biggest, one of the requirements I have them do. And it's like the biggest aha moment. We'll get to that later on. But really actually putting pen to paper changes everything. Like they have a general idea, but when they actually write out the transaction in detail, it takes to a whole nother level. And it's just a lot more real. 4 components of your avatar story. Again, this is what you want to disclose. Think of these 4 attributes or these 4 characteristics. And this is really what you're trying to pull out when you're actually creating an avatar story. Again, your perfect transaction. Again, is the who. Include the demographics, the important ones, including their name, right? So, your customer's name is Susie. She's 27. She's a single mother. She's a graphic designer, whatever. You want to be as specific as possible. But start with the who. And then secondly is how. How did they come? How did they hear about you and your offering? Right? Was it a social media platform? If it was social media, was it LinkedIn? Was it Instagram? Was it TikTok? Facebook even? How did they hear about you? Was it a social media ad you ran? Was it a referral from a previous customer? Was it a cold call for those people that the old school cold calls methods? I just had to put that in there. One of my favorite movies used to be Boiler Room, so I had to include it. But yeah, understand why. And again, this is the perfect transaction. So when you're breaking this down, you would actually say, okay, in an ideal scenario, if I'm creating the perfect transaction for my product offering, how did they come to me? A lot of times that could very well be a referral source, unless you're really leaning into your social media marketing. But whatever method that they found you want to include that in the story. Name their purchase, including the purchase amount, and describe the transaction process. So again, starting with Susie being 27, she's a graphic designer, single mother. She just moved to the city. She was referred to me from a previous transaction I just had because our transaction went extremely well. And she hired me on the spot, whatever, right? She wanted to get a so-and-so home, whatever. It doesn't matter what you're selling. She wanted to get, whatever, clothes, makeup, a car. It could be a service. She wanted to go to my massage therapist practice. Like whatever it is you're selling, describe the transaction amount. And then the process, what went from the inception, from when you first met her, she heard about you, until you actually closed the deal. And then lastly, what was the impact, right? Like not only did what you sold to her, but how was this impactful for both her? So now she could be a walking, talking billboard and advertisement for what you're selling, but also how did this impact future business? Maybe she was in the industry that you're trying to break into. So if she was in this particular industry, or she moved from a specific marketplace, you now want to target that marketplace. Whatever it is, what is the impact, and why was this transaction so important that you want to try to duplicate more of these transactions? That's what really this is about. This is really pulling out all the characteristics. And when you get this down, this really tells you everything you need to know, right? This tells you, A, who your audience is in detail. This tells you, B, how you want to market yourself, how you're going to network, what types of relationships you need to build from a referral source, from a social media capital perspective, what they're purchasing, what products you're trying to sell more than others. Because we have a lot of stuff that we can sell, but what do we want to sell, right? Why is it more impactful? And then how is it impacting your business? Again, the avatar sale is the holy grail of transactions and will serve as the basis for what you compare future sales to. So are we going to be able to get this every single time? Probably not. But if you can create this foundation of, okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, this is what I'm trying to do, this is going to be the start for you to try to create proactively and intentionally marketing and branding yourself in a way that you're going to be receiving more of these types of clients more frequently, which is going to obviously grow your business substantially. Tip, you cannot get too specific with writing your avatar story. It should be a minimum 2 paragraphs. So I would say minimum 2. It could be a story. I know some people really like to write. For me, that's not my cup of tea. But again, to get all those criteria out, the who, the how, the what they buy, and the impact, it should be at least 2 paragraphs. So part 2, again, we're moving right along. We're good. It's 11:17. So probably should be done in about 10 or 15 minutes and then have plenty of time for Q&A. Understanding why they buy, right? So now we've really we understood your why. We understand who they are. Now, why are they buying? At the end of the day, we're in business. We're trying to scale our business, we're trying to grow our business, trying to get more customers, whatever, what have you. How do we monetize our passion? And so in order to monetize our product or offering, we need to understand why they're making buying decisions. By the end of this, you understand the ideal customer for each offering, as well as the method to assure success and authenticity, right? Again, we want ongoing success. We want to maintain authenticity. That really is the driving force of your brand, and really differentiating yourself in the marketplace is authenticity. Again, your value proposition. So how can we ensure that we stay in that sweet spot, if you will, and get more of these customers on a consistent basis? So customer segmentation, who is buying and why? We're going to talk about that. And then the AHA method, I mentioned it earlier. I get so many AHAs with coaching clients, but really this is the equation for enduring success and authenticity. So customer segmentation, what it does is it allows you to gain clarity on your top customer segments for each product offering, thus directing your marketing efforts, right? So again, for every product we have, I mentioned the 80-20 rule, really essentially last time. If you've missed it, it was saying that 80% of the results are derived from 20% of the work, or 20% of the outputs. So for example, from a product perspective, if you have 10 products that you're selling, or 10 product ranges or price points that you're selling, 2 of those products traditionally are going to create 80% of your overall total sales. And so really we want to focus on those 20% of products But within those product offerings that we have that are really driving our results, who are the customer types? Who are the avatars of that particular offering, if you will, and how do we drive more of those sales? And again, to start, I would recommend creating no more than 2 customer segments per offering. You can scale up as you do this more often, but again, if you haven't done this before, this allows you to really kind of focus on your top 2 customers, so you're driving up your ROI for the marketing and the time that you're spending. So if you're going to spend your time, you might as well spend it wisely. You might as well spend it focusing on the customers that you want to work with, that you're going to make money from. So customer segmentation. For each offering, you're going to have a few customers that love and need your offer more than everyone else. Do more work with them, right? Working smarter, not harder. It's already going to be hard enough. Works as smart as you can, right? So you don't get burnt out. So step 1 within that is break down the demographics and psychographics of the customer type for this offering. So again, you offer 10 products. You want to sell more of widget A. So of widget A, who are these customers? What's their demographics and what's their psychographics? Who is the type customer for widget A? And then step 2, write out the benefits they receive and their motivation to buy, right? So again, this customer is my best customer for my widgets. This is why they're buying it. Like, this is the benefits. This is the problem you're trying to solve. This is the problem that you're solving by selling it. And then this is the motivator, right? It might be their fear of why they're needing to make a buying decision, but this is the motivation. This is what's going to push them over the edge. What are those aspects? And then step 3, you want to design your marketing campaigns around both, but focus on their why. Right? So again, this really breaks it down as we talk about from just the beginning, the funnel of even creating your purpose into who you're selling to. And it's really, that's what it's trying to get to. I mentioned in the last one, like, how do you get your goals and your daily to-do list? Like, now it's a straight line. If you guys are here, you understand why you're doing it. You understand what type of products you're offering. You're understanding who's buying and why they're making buying decisions. And now proactively and intentionally, you can start creating those campaigns that focus on their why. And focus on the benefits that they receive. So huge aspect. It really gives you a lot more targeted, a lot more specific, which how you market, and it really drives up your results. So separating out your customers per product offering not only allows you to be more specific with your marketing, but it also identifies where you should be marketing. Again, now that we've determined who is that customer for widget A, we've determined their demographics or psychographics, not only who they are, but why they're buying. We now know, is this customer going to be on LinkedIn? Is this customer going to be post-COVID in person? Is this customer going to be on Facebook? This really directs like your marketing, your branding in a proactive manner. Like I said, you want to be everywhere your customers are. But by breaking this out, if you can't be everywhere, at least be the places that your most prominent customers are, or the customers you want to work with the most, so that you're at least in that space. And then you can, do the other ones later as you scale and build your team. But yeah, it shows you where they are. So now you know what platforms you need to spend the most of your time on if you can't be everywhere. And then the tip, post-COVID, understanding these characteristics also provide the relationship mapping strategy with how to engage with your preferred clientele. Once you understand who they are and why they buy and what they like, you can then network proactively. I always say, turn your lifestyle into your networking strategy. Really, I don't network. I go places I used to go places where, I hung out and enjoyed, and I understood that that's where my target demographic was. So this not only will direct your marketing, but it will also direct how you network, your relationship mapping strategy. So last aspect before we get to the tip, we're get to the surprise. We're doing good on time, and I'll have plenty of time afterwards to answer plenty of questions. But the AHA method is the foundation for ongoing success and authenticity, right? So run everything you do through this equation to make sure you're on the right track. Use it as your compass. If you revert back to anything and everything we talked about, you actually just implement this aspect and use it as a compass for how you move your marketing, your campaigns, social, everything, the types of products you're offering. If you're getting burnt out, you can kind of look back in this and be like, oh, I'm not here anymore. But literally, when I'm working with my clients, they have AHA method multiple times. They're like, oh, it makes sense now. Oh, that's right. They have, they get to that level of where everything kind of come together. And it's just, like I said, I just say it's the AHA method because there's literally so many AHAs that they get throughout the process. So what is the AHA method, right? The 4 P's of the AHA method is purpose, product, personality, and prospect. right? Those are the 4 aspects, the 4 P's of the method. And essentially at its core, saying when your purpose matches your product, we talked about this, and this is everything we've talked about in a nutshell, really from both webinars. But when your purpose matches your product offering, right? You understand who you want to serve, how you want to serve them, what you're selling, which matches your personality. And this requires a little bit of self-awareness, but this is who you are as a person. This will go into your marketing campaign and your strategy. How do you want to communicate it? What do you get at? Are you someone that's good on video? Are you someone that has an amazing voice? Are you someone that's better at writing, right? So when your purpose matches your product, which matches your personality, and how do you want to communicate what you're selling, which matches the prospects, because now you've determined you now have the product you want to sell to the customer you want to sell it to in a way that is authentic and congruent with your skill sets, you win. Really, you can look at anything you're selling, whether it's a product, whether it's the customer type, whether it's how you're marketing yourself, really, right? Any of these things, if you stay in this equation right here, you're going to win more, you're going to enjoy your work, you're going to make more money doing it. So that is what, my customers see when we go through that all the time. Like I said, we kind of break it down and they're just like, oh, yes, so, it's like a eureka moment, really, if you will. But that is the AHA method, and just stay as that as much as possible. So that is essentially the end of this. I told you I gave you guys, have plenty of time for Q&A, but I do want to kind of pull it all together. And so this is the surprise, pulling it all together, right? I didn't talk about this, actually walking you guys through creating campaigns, but why not? So putting it all together, now you know who they are, why they buy, so you need to start selling. So I'm actually going to walk you through the step-by-step process of creating a successful campaign. And these are the successful components of a campaign, whether you're trying to build brand or sell product, right? Any type of marketing strategy that you're implementing is really a campaign of some sort. So really it is like, okay, what are you selling? Is this a brand building tactic, or is this a selling? We ever bring a new product to market, or we're just trying to sell a specific item? How do we actually create a campaign that's going to be successful? And I'm not going to go in the weeds, but we'll just break it down. Attributes of a successful campaign: the name of the campaign, objective you're trying to accomplish, who the target customer is, distribution, where you're going to distribute it, duration and the budget of the campaign itself, understanding measurables and what you're looking to measure, and then potential pivot points, right? If it's not working, where do I pivot? And so again, breaking it down, each aspect, name is the tagline of the campaign, can include hashtags or special attributes, right? So when you're creating a campaign, you kind of got all this information all together. You're like, okay, this is the hot buttons that I need to talk about. This is the why of the customer I'm trying to reach. So what's that tagline? I love creating taglines for a campaign. And if you're going to create any type of special hashtags or special attributes that you want to create around it, like what is the name of it? Objective, what are you looking to accomplish? Be specific. Is this, again, are you brand building? Are you selling products? If you're selling products, how many are you looking to sell, right? If you don't have a number attached to it, and some goals could be tangible and some aren't going to be tangible, but be as specific as possible so you can actually measure them. Who the target customer is for this particular campaign, right? Who are you trying to reach, and are there more than one? I mentioned, like, I would recommend for each product offering, not doing more than 2. You'll notice that as you create customer segments, some aspects will blend over and overlap, and some will be specific. So you might get some extra of like customer 2, or you might just have to duplicate this campaign more than once and target one customer and then the next customer. Distribution, again, where, how, and how often. If you know who the customer is, you know where you need to go. How is going to be determined by your personality, and then how often are you actually going to put out content? How often are you going to put out videos? How often are you going to put out mailers? Whatever that is, what's the distribution of this particular campaign? Duration and budget, how long is it going to last, and what's your budget for assets and advertisements? A lot of people, they'll think of just how much they want to spend on ads, but you need to have your assets. It's an art and a science. If your assets don't look up to par, it doesn't matter how much money you put in behind it to budget, it's not going to be successful. So budget for top tier assets and budget for an advertisement, whether that's social media, magazine, whatever. Measurables, what do you need to measure, right? Not just vanity metrics, but what do you need to measure to make sure that's successful, and how often? What is the cadence of your measurements? How often are you going to measure your campaign? Then the last aspect Jot, oh, jot down one or more. Ooh, I'm going ahead. Jot down one or more potential pivots if it's not measuring up. So going into it, have a plan B, plan C. Say, hey, okay, if I'm not getting this by then, these are things I could be doing. It's not necessarily that you're going to follow those exact criteria, but it kind of gives you an idea and it kind of lays a foundation for what you could be going. Um, yeah, that is really everything. We covered, what your purpose is, how do you turn your passion into profit from, a perspective of what you like to do. This is really goes in the crux of really understanding who you should be selling to and why. And that's really it. I'll let you guys know first, Club BU, brand you, will be launching, I guess it's a week from today. So stay on the lookout from that. It is